But let me just quickly spend the first 3 to 4 minutes in introducing what the space over the next 75 minutes is about. Yeah. But before I do that, would love for you to understand that many of you here who are probably not on the panel but work very closely with young adults, if you could just quickly turn to your partner and think about, based on your experience with working with young adults these days, what are you picking up as their aspiration, both in terms of the careers that they want to pick and how much do they want to earn. Maybe just 30 seconds, find a partner, talk to them. What do you know of in terms of what's their aspiration looking like and how much do they want to earn? Thank you. So I just remembered I've forgotten to introduce myself. I am the first cohort of Teach for India proud alumnus of 2009. I'm currently leading the Akanksha Foundation. We run 26 schools directly serving about 14,000 children and almost 4,000 plus alumni. We're also partnering with the Pimpri Chinchwad and Nagpur Municipal Corporation to improve the learning outcomes of about 250 plus public schools. Akanksha, of course, has been in the space for 30 plus years. I also have here my co-facilitator, Ruchi. She is the Senior Director of Art for Akanksha. The beautiful art that you all saw on ground floor, a lot of the credit goes to her and the kids, of course. And, she was instrumental in setting up Akanksha's alumni support and engagement vertical over the last 6 to 7 years, right? So the reason why I asked you this question is, I came across this very interesting study done by Global Competitive Institute. Take a guess. What amount earning per month does it take to be in the top 10% of India's income earners? And I'll give you some options so that we can have everyone participate. Yeah. Number one, 15,000 a month. Number two, 20,000. Number three, 25,000. And number four, 40,000. So whatever you think is the response, how much per month income makes you to be in the top 10% of country's earners? Yeah? 15, 20, 25, 40. Everyone is responding. 25,000 is the right response. Let me give you the irony of it. A year or so back, we asked Akanksha's 300 alumni based out of Mumbai and Pune, how much would you like to earn? What's your income aspiration? And about 80% of them said 35,000 rupees or above in their starting salaries. And we've been, one of the first and foremost public-private partnership school models, running schools all the way from kindergarten to 10. We have enough problems in K to 10 schools to be really figuring out, hey, what will it take for our alumni to be financially empowered, right? And so we've been holding this question. And so we thought over the next 75 minutes or so, we bring in front of this group of folks who I believe are also holding similar questions, along with practitioners. You will hear from our panelists that what does it take for young adults in our country to be empowered? Yeah. And we are deconstructing empowerment into three pillars. First, economic mobility. Second, agency. And third is purpose. Your ability to be able to engage with the community and give back. Yeah. So that's what we intend to cover over the next 75 minutes. We're not here to tell you what works. We're really here to just initiate a conversation of what we are trying and perhaps take away a little bit from all of you as well in the room. Yeah. So with that, I will introduce my co-facilitator, Ruchi, to take us ahead.
Okay, thanks for getting us warmed up. You will see on your chairs that there are stories. There are a mix of 4 stories. Your task over the next 7 to 10 minutes, you can do this individually or you can pair up with the person next to you, is to read the story and attempt to answer the questions below.
Yeah, sitting in 4th row.
The stories cover a young person's family life and background, their aspirations, their challenges, and it leaves you at a crossroad, helping them to decide what to do from that point on. So I'm going to give you about 7 minutes Let's go deep into these stories. If you don't have a sheet, please put your hand up and I'll take it. Are we back? Much to discuss. Hard questions. All right, does anyone want to share what they came across or a piece of, what was their response to one of the questions? Maybe around skills that are important or experiences that are important for that particular young person. Yeah?
Yeah, so I was just discussing, I also have a privilege of working with a few young adults in the program that we run. So before responding to a question, just like a slide, just like a 30-second thing. I mean, from grade 11th till the end of graduation, most of young people, especially coming from high-need communities, end up in colleges, which many a times are not guaranteeing any kind of job. But never will you see any college seat going empty in a city like Pune or Bombay. So what's happening? So becoming a graduate is more than, in India, it's sort of a social status, right? And the wonderful organizations doing so good in vocational are still not able to get it. So my understanding of, what alternative route can be there is like maybe a possibility of using their time after their college, because most of this college also end at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. There's another, because they're awake till 12 in the night again. There's like a huge opportunity that, I see. And I really like all that was mentioned here. I don't think so it's or it's and. Maybe across these 5 years, if there are opportunities and experiences around internships, workshops, assigning them a coach, getting them into something that they're interested in. And in the end, when they're 21, they might do something which they studied as a full-time thing, but there's something between your full-time and not doing anything. There's part-time and freelance as well. So that overall, space, even if they work 10 hours a week and maybe do video editing, maybe they can make around 15 or 20 as well. So maybe something like this is what I thought.
Great. Thank you. Let's see what happens with these 4 young people. One more quick response? Yes.
Thank you. So I was going through Bhagyashree's case study, and I think something which I really liked, her awareness of why an informed choice is important. I think that's strong. And having worked with an organization where we work with young adults very closely towards career guidance, I think something that would work for a Bhagyashree is what does self-awareness of her own interest, her own aptitude look like. So there are psychometric tests which are available. How does she build that to decide, hence, what are the careers available and how does she move beyond that? So I think the first step would be how does she build that self-awareness of what does she like, what is she good at, and then see what the industry is also readily available and providing out there.
Maybe know your name.
Hi, I'm Palak. I work with the Antarang Foundation. I'm a 2016 fellow.
Lovely. Why don't you introduce yourself as well?
I'm Shoaib. I'm a very fellow.
Wonderful. Okay, I know there are many more thoughts and responses and the spaces to listen to many more, but hold on to them. And let's see what happened with these 4 young people, because we left you not at the end of their journey, but really at the point where things were going to change. So I'd love to get Vaibhav here. And I'm going to tell you his story. Some of you have read Vaibhav's story. How many of you read about Vaibhav here today? Okay. Let's see what happened. So firstly, Vaibhav, I loved having our conversations together because I felt you really kind of owned your story and were so possessive of it, and I loved that.
Thank you.
Okay, here goes. Vaibhav's journey began in a resettlement colony in Delhi, where he lived with his mother and his father, who were deeply engaged in improving their community. He attended a Hindi medium municipality school with limited resources and later moved to a government school. Determined to succeed, he worked hard to clear the entrance for Rajkiya Pratibha Vikas Vidyalaya, an English medium school where he thrived from grade 9 onwards. After acing the entrance of Avanti Fellows, he began preparing for the IIT JEE, meeting an inspiring mentor and excelling academically. Through grades 11 and 12, Vaibhav excelled in science and economics, discovering his passion for the subject. He realized economics was his true calling. His high scores in grade 12 earned him admission into the prestigious Sri Ram College of Commerce. At SRCC, he embraced various opportunities, founding the Financial Literacy Cell, joining the Fine Arts Society, and interning at the Ministry of External Affairs. He represented first-generation graduates at the Harvard Business School's Crossroads Emerging Leaders program in Dubai, and he went on to get his master's degree from Delhi School of Economics. He found himself giving back through his volunteer work at Goonj and teaching young people through NSS. After graduating, Vaibhav secured a role at Northern Trust Corporation and later joined Morgan Stanley as an analyst, where he established the diversity community and received the prestigious Values Award for his contributions. His journey is a testament to resilience and passion. What an inspiring story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vaibhav, if I was to ask you, what were one or two things that made the biggest difference for you through this journey, what would those be?
So first of all, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I think the one or two things which have really been instrumental in my journey, apart from, of course, hard work and skill set and the big college brand names, etc. I think it has been the mentorship I have received at various stages of my academic journey or even my professional journey. I think right when I was in school, I had teachers who I used to share my problems with and discuss with them like what could be the path next. Similarly, at Avanti Fellows, I met a wonderful mentor, Neha Kamra. She's really been a support to me. She's really guided me in the direction that I should have. Then again, in my college, I had teachers who were supportive of me. And even today, when I'm in a corporate sector, I have mentors. I regularly meet them, catch up with them, discuss my issues with them. They help me provide clarity in the moments of confusion. And sometimes they even, they have so much faith in me, they have so much confidence in my potential, which I sometimes don't see in myself. And then they push me to reach for things which I would never imagine to have reached. So I think that has been really important in my journey.
And just so many opportunities that you took on. You didn't just get through SRCC, you were part of like a million clubs and programs, right?
Yeah. So I also believe in not restricting learning to just your school curriculum. I mean, try to be a part of as many clubs as you can. Because that's where the real personality grows. That's where you learn the real things. I mean, and some of them have been really challenging also, more than even academic tests and those things. So I think, yeah, I think it was important for me to reach where I am.
And what a great place you are at.
Thank you.
Next up, who read about Bhagyashree? Okay, quite a few people here. Where's Bhagyashree? Come on up. Okay, I'm going to read for you her life journey. Growing up in a financially unstable household, Bhagyashree was inspired by her mother's strength, which taught her resilience and the value of education. She joined Akanksha's KCTVN school in Pune, became an avid reader and used books to escape from life. She saw the importance of making choices and decisions and learned that being a good human being solves a lot in life. In grade 11 and 12, through the Akanksha alumni program, she got exposed to Nav Gurukul, attended an orientation and joined the program. They guaranteed work and a really great starting salary. With pressures at home to start earning soon, she decided to take this up. Her interest in technology was nurtured here and a new career path emerged. It was hard to be away from home and the concept of peer learning was so new that she cried the first whole month, but soon adjusted. Traveling, playing, cooking, being looked after emotionally and mentally, making connections for life and being groomed as a person. She got an interview with NatWest, a multinational bank, in the very first year itself, and got an internship with them, and went in not expecting to get a job. She felt intimidated, but also excited to be working with seasoned professionals and picked up lots of skills. Her internship at NatWest was a pivotal moment in her life. She's now working as an automation tester in the CRM COE team, lives in Delhi, and came all the way here because she wanted to tell her story. Today, as a back-end engineer at NatWest, she feels grateful to the mentors and communities from Navkurukul to Akanksha who supported her. I've had the chance to follow Bhagyashree's story for many years, and it's the first time I'm meeting her, and I have loved getting to know you better, Bhagyashree. I think the same question for you. What would you say were the one or two big pieces that made all the difference as you transitioned from school to college to work?
Yeah, I think the very first obvious would be, as Vaibhav mentioned about mentorship. I think having a group of people invest in your growth, share their wisdom, and support your dreams is invaluable. And I mean, even though individual effort is important, growth is amplified when it is part of a collective journey. So, yeah, that's a very obvious answer for any of our alumni who have been through this journey. And then I think, as she also told about informed choices, I think life is not shaped by our abilities alone, but by the informed choices, especially when faced with uncertainty. So I think that really matters. And I mean, I chose Navgurukul, right? So choosing Navgurukul was not only about leaving my comfort zone, it was about recognizing an opportunity, weighing its potential, and then, putting your trust into it, putting your trust into the promise that it brings. So I think every step that I've taken, whether it was about choosing Navgurukul or it was about, trying to pursue a tech job without having a traditional degree or navigating through professional challenges, I think every step of it has came from thoughtful decisions, and I think that really matters. So, yeah, it is our choices that define us far more than our abilities.
That's really beautifully put. Thanks, Bhagyashree. Okay, who's next? Sejal. Who got to read about Sejal's story? Yeah, I love this story. Sejal, where are you? Come on up. Sejal found herself at a crossroads, torn between her uncle's wishes for a stable career in accounting and her own passion for baking. Growing up in Pune and attending a Marathi medium school, Sejal chose food processing and specifically baking as her vocational track in grades 11 and 12. Lend a Hand's vocational course enabled her to pursue a path she found practical, grounded in real-world skills, and genuinely exciting. To meet her family's expectations, Sejal enrolled in a BCom program. However, during the COVID lockdown, she found herself drawn back to baking. Experimenting with recipes, she improved quickly, and soon her cakes and chocolates gained popularity. Word spread, and she even began taking orders. Unsure of how to manage this budding business, she sought advice from the team at Lend a Hand, who guided her through pricing, managing orders, and growing her small venture. She named her brand Angur Cakes, and there's a very interesting story behind that, and she began selling her creations. After graduating, Sejal continued to pursue her passion while balancing a job as a store manager at a small business specializing in corporate gifting. On weekends, she found her own growing brand, self-learning business essentials, and even accepting large orders and corporate clients. She sets up stalls at events, takes chocolate orders, and in one memorable moment, her uncle, who did not want her to pursue this, helped her pack and get together a huge order of 2,000 chocolates. Sejal's journey is just beginning as she balances family expectations with a passion that she's turned into a business.
we're doing a whole cake exchange because I bake as well. So she's got me her brownies and I've got her some cake and it was delicious. But Sejal, आप बताएंगे आपकी इस यात्रा में ये एक या दो चीजें क्या थी जो बहुत ही मायने रखते हैं?
सॉरी, मैं ऐसे बात करूंगी. हिंदी सबको समझ में आती है, मैं हिंदी में ही बोलूंगी. आई एम सेजल फ्रॉम पुणे, लैंड हैंड इंडिया. 11th में फूड प्रोसेसिंग लिया था, पता नहीं था कि आगे जाके क्या करना है. बट जस्ट 11th के बाद इंटर्नशिप की इटालियन कैफ़े में, कॉफ़ी विला, एंड जस्ट कंप्लीटेड 80 आवर्स की. उसके बाद 12th में प्रैक्टिकल्स, 12th भी ख़त्म हो गई. उसके बाद 2 दिन का प्रैक्टिकल्स था जो अलग एक साइड में था, पुणे में ही था, वो किया. तो ऐसा लगा कि ये जो सामान है ना, ये घर से भी कर सकते हैं हम. तो वो मैं कर सकती थी, तो ऐसे सोचा कि ठीक है देखते हैं. बट घर से मेरे अंकल ने नहीं बोला कि नहीं ये करके क्या करेगी, आगे जाके ये काम में नहीं आएगा, तो तू फाइनेंशियल अकाउंट्स में ना बीकॉम में, तो अकाउंट्स कर ले, फाइनेंशियल बैंकिंग इसमें ही जाके तू आगे कुछ कर ले. तो मैंने बोला ठीक है. बट अंदर से मेरा नहीं था, ऐसे लगा कि ये सीख रहे हो ना तो इसमें कुछ करते हैं. ऐसे करके मैंने आगे फिर फर्स्ट ईयर में होटल मैनेजमेंट का कॉलेज के लिए ट्राई किया, बट वो नहीं हुआ, इसलिए मैंने छोड़ दिया. बट घर से किया, लॉकडाउन में ही स्टार्ट किया मेरी जर्नी. सामान ही नहीं मिल रहा था, पता ही नहीं था कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, तो स्क्रैच से किया. बट प्रोफेशनल में थोड़ा सा अलग करना था कि चीज़ें सारी सेटअप करनी थी. तो जस्ट लाइक स्टार्ट किया, एक शॉप मिल गई, वहाँ से सामान नहीं हो रहा था लेने के लिए क्योंकि घर से तो नहीं बोलते थे. फिर भी खुद की पॉकेट मनी से थोड़ा थोड़ा सामान लेकर मैंने केक करना स्टार्ट किया. स्टार्टिंग में 2-3 केक्स मेरे ख़राब हो गए, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. घर वालों ने बोला ये कुछ नहीं करेगी, ऐसे ही कर रही है कुछ. तो फिर ठीक है बोला, मैंने खुद से किया. आगे जाके फिर 5-6 केक बनाने के बाद एक केक बन गया. मैंने तो मेरा केक 2 इयर्स खाया ही नहीं. अभी 5 साल हो गए, बट 2 इयर्स मैंने केक्स खाया ही नहीं. मेरे कुकीज़ तो मैंने ट्राई नहीं किए थे, बट केक ऐसा दिखता था अच्छा, बट खाया नहीं. फिर 2-3 साल बाद एक केक किया, सबने बोला बहुत अच्छा है, ऐसे लग रहा ही नहीं तूने किया. तो तब मैंने टेस्ट किया एंड इट्स वेरी, बहुत अच्छा था पाइनएप्पल वाला. तब से फिर मैंने बाहर के केक अभी खाए ही नहीं, मेरे ही खाती हूँ. एंड देन मेरा ग्रेजुएशन कंप्लीट हुआ. ग्रेजुएशन के टाइम में थोड़ा सा मैंने टाइम मेरा स्टडी को दिया, थोड़ा सा केक वगैरह थोड़ा साइड में था. बट ग्रेजुएशन के बाद थोड़ा सा फोकस किया, फिर कुकीज़ वगैरह, चॉकलेट्स वगैरह बनाती थी, चॉकलेट्स के ऑर्डर्स भी लेती थी, मोदक के चॉकलेट्स, ये वो गणपति के सीजन्स में. एंड देन उसके बाद फिर घर से ही छोटा सा मेरा स्टार्ट किया. फिर ऑर्डर्स आने लगे फ्रेंड्स के, फैमिली के, बट पैसे कोई नहीं देता था. फैमिली में पैसे ऐसे कोई नहीं देते थे, सब हाँ कुछ नहीं लगता, कुछ नहीं लगता. बट किया फिर भी. बट बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स आई जो फेस करने के लिए मैं अकेली थी, कोई साथ में ज़्यादा था नहीं, सिस्टर्स वगैरह वो भी नहीं थे, मैं अकेली ही करती थी. साथ में मेरी एक मासी थी, वो मुझे हेल्प करते थे. तो ऐसे करके बिज़नेस बढ़ाया. अभी मेरा अच्छा बिज़नेस है. 2000 चॉकलेट्स मैं बनाती हूँ, ऑर्डर्स लेती हूँ, 1000 चॉकलेट्स, 2000 चॉकलेट्स. एंड देन अभी मेरा ऐसा बिज़नेस सेट है. मेरे कार्ड्स है, मैं आपसे बाद में सबसे मिल के मेरे कार्ड्स दे दूँगी. थैंक यू.
She's on Instagram, so if you want to follow her.
आप मुझे फॉलो भी कर लो.
हाँ.
अंगूर एंड केक फॉलो कर लो सब लोग. थैंक यू रुचि मैम.
Thank you, Sejal. Next up, Rahul. Who read about Rahul? Okay, super. Rahul, you want to come up? Rahul's parents moved from a small village in Maharashtra to Mumbai, determined to give their children a better life. His father, a taxi driver, dreamed of seeing his children attend the top colleges that, he dropped many of his passengers to. Rahul attended a Marathi medium government school and joined Akanksha's after-school center, which focused on English, math, values, and co-curriculars. Despite challenges like neighborhood safety issues and rampant drug abuse around him, he excelled academically with the support of his family and Akanksha. In grade 10, he dreamed of becoming a police officer to help reduce crime in his community. After passing his SSC exam, Rahul was thrilled to get into St. Xavier's College. However, adjusting to the new environment was difficult and he faced a huge setback, failing 5 out of 6 subjects. With resilience, he completed his HSC privately and enrolled in Elphinstone College and later joined Akanksha's social leadership program that inspired him to think about his role in society. Facing pressure to support his family, Rahul balanced part-time internships with organizations like Praja, Antarang and Akanksha while completing his graduation. He returned to St. Xavier's for his master's, becoming the first in his family to reach this milestone. Realizing he could make an impact without joining the civil services, he chose to work at Akanksha, where he has been a part of the alumni support and engagement team for the last 6 years. Today, Rahul is an assistant manager, co-leading alumni support in Mumbai, inspiring so many young people to pursue their dreams. He also empowers his community by helping set up housing societies, improving governance, and promoting the right to information. Rahul's journey and dedication are really inspiring, and I have loved working with you, Rahul, over these last 6 years and watching your journey since you were younger. Rahul, same question for you. What were one or two really big things that you felt made a difference and got you where you are today?
Thank you so much, Rutuji. Yeah. So I think I strongly believed in my values, which were taught to me in my classrooms, which really helped me in those phases of my life when I failed in grade 11. So I was one of the brightest kid in my classroom, and then the entire shift of getting into colleges, getting into real world, which put my morale completely down. And at that point in time, I was feeling very lost. So I went back to what I learned from my classroom, my values, especially about having belief and taking our own time, working on our strengths. And second is the connection that I made at Akansha. I think everybody shared the similar things. I went back to the people who supported me, asking help, taking initiatives, because at that time it feels, as I mentioned, complete loss, and you do not have understanding to which steps you take. So guidance is one of the best thing that I got in my life. And also, how do you approach to that guidance? Sometimes you have opportunities, but you have to take that initiative and take the decision. So all those skills and experience that I learned during my school journey and also at my college journey. I think these are the two things that really shaped me.
Thanks, Rahul. Thank you all. I think it's a room full of educators, and I'm just wondering, we go so deep into the work that we're doing, and sometimes there's so much to do, and we're trying to do a million things for our kids. What would your advice be to us if we were to focus on one or two things that you feel has the greatest impact? What would that be? I mean, we've heard all of you talk about the role of mentors. जो आपकी टीचर्स हैं या एडवाइजर्स थे, उनका रोल बहुत अहम है. उसके अलावा आपको क्या लगता है, अगर प्रोग्राम्स हो या कुछ एक या दो स्किल्स हो जो सब बच्चों में होने चाहिए, आपकी राय क्या होगी? What would your advice to this group? You want to start, Vaibhav?
One incident I want to share, when I was at SRCC, there were people similar to me from government schools who had got admission into SRCC. And what I realized is by the end of 3 years at SRCC, most of those people stopped coming to the college because they were not comfortable sitting with the people speaking in high class English language. They were not comfortable participating in group discussions. They were not comfortable sitting for interviews which were held for different societies and clubs. And this really affected their morale. So I think teaching students to face real life challenges beyond books is very important. Have them interact with each other, build their self-esteem so that they can face the world after they're out of their school. I think these things are important to build courage in them to face the world.
I think something similar I would like to add on is what we need to shade from kind of the education system, or when it comes to teaching or nurturing students, is the obsession with certainty and perfection. So I think I myself struggle with that. I want everything to be perfect and all. But I think when it comes to life and learning, it's messy, it's fragmented, it's non-linear. So we need to it's not about there isn't always a perfect and only a particular way to do things. So I think it's about dancing with the uncertainty, and that's how we can get on with life.
कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स पे ध्यान देना चाहिए, ये सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि ये अगर रहेगा ना तो वो कोई भी चीज़ पे फोकस कर सकते हैं. दैट वन पॉइंट.
Thank you all. So, Rupa, Nidhi, and Akshay, many thanks for participating in this. I'm curious, like you've just heard a very micro perspective from all the, young adults here who've kind of entered the world of work more recently. Rupa, just to pick your brains, given your current role, if you could shed a little bit more light for the audience on any data or statistics about what are you seeing, where are the jobs going over the next 5 to 7 years. I know in our conversations you've also mentioned the emphasis that the government has. So maybe just shed a little bit more light, and Nidhi and Akshay, you can add to that as well.
Do we need these? Can you hear us? Is it?
I think it's for the recording.
Oh, for the.
Thank you.
So I request us to speak a little louder.
Louder? Okay. Tell me if I need to speak even louder. Saurabh, as you mentioned, I'm right now sitting within the Tata Group, and I think while it doesn't by far explain what's going on in India, I think there are some interesting trends happening. One is that right now we employ 1.2 million people around the world, but the majority is in India. In the next 5 years, we're pretty sure that we're going to employ another 500,000 people. So a big part of our ramp up is happening over the next 5 years. And usually if that's a good take for what the Tatas are doing, you're going to see that multiplied by the rest of industry. Now, we need to come up with 10 million jobs a year. So there is a lot of jobs coming on board, but at the same time, there's a lot more that we need to solve for. So both things are true at the same time. I think some of the interesting things that I'm seeing is that a lot of the new jobs that are coming on board are in manufacturing. So I think that's one change that's going to we're going to see in the economy. Services jobs will continue to grow, but a lot of our new growth is happening in things like electronics, semiconductors. There's also a lot of growth in jobs related to planet resilience and sustainability. So electric vehicles, creating batteries companies, rooftop installation around the world is in huge demand. So there's a lot of, manufacturing and this overlap with sustainability related jobs. And of course, data and AI. And I think that's a piece where we're all still trying to figure out what that means and what skills are going to be involved, but that's obviously going to change the world of work. I think two things that we're seeing in terms of features or trends that will change over time is that now in our workforce, there is a huge amount of migration. We always talked about migration before, but we didn't see it, or we saw it like state to state. But now we're seeing big movements from, let's say, the Northeast to the South. And we think that's only going to continue. And so thinking about what that means for the country, what does that mean for the individuals? A lot of the other big feature is that a lot of the hiring in our manufacturing and the migrants are women, young women. So in Tata Electronics, for example, we've hired about 12,000 people. 90% of them are young women, 20, 21 years old. And there's good parts to that story, and there's also not so great parts to the kind of work that they're doing and thinking about mobility. So I think that brings on a lot of questions. And that brings me to the second piece, that even in the consumer businesses and in services, I think everyone expects that women are going to be a much larger part of this new workforce that's coming on board. And largely it's because, only about a third of our workforce has secondary education, and then we have 120 million women who have secondary education who aren't working. So I think there's this big chase to figure out how to be able to access that, because we would move from only a third of our workforce having secondary education to sort of like 45%, nearly half, if we could get those people on board. So I think those are two big things. Can I say one more thing? I know then the last is that I think like the feature, how we work is changing. And so I think this whole piece that gender, geography, but also multi-generations, because as we are also aging, we're going to be having 4 or 5 different generations working at the same time. And so I think we're also grappling with what that means and what does that look like over the next 5 years.
Thank you, Rupa. And I don't know, Nidhi and Akshay, do you have anything to add from what you are keeping in mind as you are working with young adults?
So I think buried within what Rupa was also saying is, I think, this fact, right, that I think the number of formal jobs that we are really going to create is going to always be a very small percentage of the number of young people entering the workforce. And I think this is something which, and I think some of the, I'm not going to call you kids, but young adults, also brought up is, I think this uncertainty, and I think this is becoming more and more apparent now to young people that naukri to lagni nahi wali, right? And if we are going to get placed, we have to have this extraordinary skill set that people will really want. And there's also a lot of opaqueness, right? Where it's not very clear where these jobs are. The only thing, I think, at least in our work, especially in rural India, is that there are jobs in the government. That there's some at least visibility that there are so many vacancies and so on and so forth. But I think private sector hiring is a complete black box, I think, for most young people in India. So I think there has to be some bridge there, because I think in the absence of information, most young people are just making decisions in the dark. Either listening to someone in their community, someone saying, or someone on YouTube, God forbid, right? So, so I think this transparency and look, and these are just realities, right? These are the number of jobs that there are. This is what you need to get them. This is how much they pay. For people to make, I think young people to start making decisions with more information. And naturally what that will lead to is many more people will go down Sejal's path than any of the other people on this panel, right? And I think how do we equip young people to do that becomes, I think, from a policy perspective, like a very big problem to solve as well. That was anything I wanted to add.
No, I think just adding, but very similar experiences. I think rural, the government aspiration. We're right now working in Chhattisgarh. We have 3 centers in Chhattisgarh, campuses, one in Jashpur, which is this very small district in North Chhattisgarh, Dantewada, and then one in Raipur, which is capital. You will see across the board, but even more so in rural Chhattisgarh, this desire for these government jobs only, right? Like they have these they are at our campuses, it's fully funded, we do guaranteed jobs, we have placed more than 1,000 students in digital economic careers where they are dignified jobs, they have agency, they will be able to grow year on year. All of this information they know, and yet the desire for a government job is extremely high. Breaking that barrier is very hard. And so sort of like very intentional, deliberate conversations around what does that mean? What is the probability of them getting a government job? Literally having conversations with, like, if you apply, how many people are applying? What is the percentage? What is the likelihood? How many times? I think this awareness is a huge critical piece, and there's a lot of work to be done. The uncertainty piece is something that is also very important. While it's a lack of information that people want the government jobs, it's also there is an intuitive understanding that there is uncertainty. While these other jobs might be accessible and possible if someone just gives the right kind of mentorship and exposure, there is also this long-term uncertainty of it, which really scares people, and rightly so. The careers are constantly shifting. With the advent of AI, people don't know where your digital economy jobs will go. So an understanding so AI is a huge threat. AI is also a huge opportunity, and enabling people to actually sorry, I forgot to silence my phone. Just one second. Enabling people to actually work with that and work through that, understanding how the world could shift and how to prepare for it, how to learn on your own, I think is a critical piece. We work on that a lot. We don't do classrooms. And what Bhagyashree was talking about, that for the first month she basically cried through her experience, and we need to work on improving that experience. It's a very common experience actually at Navgurukul, and rightly so, because they've gone through a system in which they have always had teachers. There's a lot of rote learning. There's a lot of spoon feeding that's happening, and they come to Navgurukul, and we suddenly is like, yeah, here's the curriculum, here's the content, go through it. You'll have peer mentors, but basically you have to learn to pull, right? Like we don't push students. We tell them that you learn to learn. You go through the journey, and where you get stuck, you ask us, and we will support them. And we don't push them. We push them for a lot of input and effort and rigor. We expect 8 to 10 hours of learning, and it's a very intense experience to be at an Navgurukul campus. But we focus a lot on inputs as opposed to output. But there's so much uncertainty, but we literally push them because we need to get them to learn on their own. Not only is the learning better and more retention and faster learning, but this learning to learn is the critical piece. So I think as a policy, we need to think a lot about how can higher education, especially, I think not just higher education, the 9th to 12th standard and post 12th standard, by the time students are 9th grade, I think the pedagogy that we are talking about, the self-paced, peer-led pedagogy, where there's a lot of focus on input, as opposed to teacher-led pedagogy, where there's, instead of focusing on how can teaching be better, how can learning be better, I think we need to shift that conversation quite a bit.
Well, I think you touched upon it, Nidhi. And Rupa and Akshay, I would love to bring the two of you in. Rupa, with your macro perspective of where the jobs are going, as well as having been in touch with so many of the girls who've graduated from Avsara, what are one or two fundamental shifts that you all have begun to think about to, prepare the young women for the future that is seemingly uncertain? And Akshay, same for you. Given the scale at which you work, Rupa, you are focusing more on the depth model, single school. Akshay, you are thinking about this more at a scale level. So would love to learn from the two of you, keeping in mind the macro perspective and the experience of so many young adults. What are some of the fundamental shifts that you all are beginning to think of in your organizations or programs?
I think the biggest learning, we're in our 10th year of operations at Avsara Academy, and I think we started off really focusing completely on the academics. We run a Cambridge curriculum. Most of our kids come from municipal schools, so it's a big transition to get them prepared for 10th and 12th, and everything about our impact assessment was about their scores and what colleges they got into. Now, the colleges that they got into, and because the landscape has changed so much in the last 10 years with what colleges are available, we realized that there were two pieces of our school that actually became much more important relative to the academics. One is there's a whole piece around social and emotional learning at Avsara where we have dedicated counselors. We have a counseling team and we have a college and career counseling team. So these two structures, not just saying that you're doing it, but having an advisory curriculum where 15 students are paired with a teacher, having one-on-one counseling classes, having grade level counseling classes, and then having topic level counseling where there's a whole curriculum around everything from study skills, the 21st century skills that we all talk about, all the way to like adolescent brain development, things that have to do with gender and going to work. Having those conversations, I think, from when you're in 6th standard and 7th standard puts you in a good place to be able to discuss what the real challenges are when you're transitioning to work. So that was a piece that was like a support part to our academic program that has now become like I think the model that other schools come to us mostly to try to understand how to do. And the second piece is like a very direct vertical around college and career counseling. And like, I think this is also a burgeoning area of growth in India where we need college counselors because the timelines, the documentation for our kids and where they're coming from, they don't need to just get into college, they need to get scholarships. To be able to get scholarships, first of all, is like it's like a needle in a haystack, and they don't have documentation. So the amount of work and support that you have to do just on that front. So to think of like exposure, understanding careers from 6th through 9th, to then navigating, whether you're doing a standardized test, whether you're going abroad, whether you're in liberal arts, whether you're going into the public college system, and all the different timelines that involves for one student is like that is something both the adults and the students need to understand right from the start. So I'd say these two structures have ended up becoming so critical to the school.
Can I just
and I think you kind of adding on to what some of them also mentioned about mentoring and how to structure that advisory program. Now go ahead quickly add and then love to hear from Akshay.
I think a very valid point that Rupa got up. So right now, being an alum of Akansha Foundation and coming back to working in foundation, especially in the alumni support and engagement team, At Akansha, we run a similar sort of career program with grade 9 and grade 10 students, where we focus more on making them aware about the options that are there in the market available, and also try to streamline and narrow it down to a stream that they will take in grade 11. So, I mean, when we interact with parents, they have very little knowledge about the standard stream that are available: science, arts, and commerce. They do not know about vocations. They do not know about offbeat careers. So I think adding that to the curriculum really helped us also to give them a good exposure about the career out there, and also linking that to the admission process. So when they opt for these courses, there are also institute where which we enroll them into the program, and I think that is what right now I'm also doing at Akansha as my professional role.
So I think now we've been doing this about 15 years, right? So when we started, I think part of the reason that we chose to prepare kids for these engineering exams largely was it seemed like at least it was a straight line path. And that you get kids into ABC college, Infosys, TCS, Wipro will come hire them, and then kind of it's, at least there's a clean path to work. I think over the years, as we track our alumni, we are seeing that that's already shifted. Like it's not shifting, it has shifted, right? So just because you go to Government College of Engineering Aurangabad does not mean that you will get a job, right? That is certainly true now. And I think as a consequence, the need to prepare children for an uncertain life has become, I think, extremely high. Very similar to Rupa's experience, right? Which is, I think in the early days when the scale was smaller, you could just focus on, getting kids into colleges. But now I think it's very clear, no matter what college they go to, they can go to an IIT. It's not so obvious that they will have the same opportunities as the kids like Weber graduating in like the early to mid 2000s had, that even the late 2010s had, right? I think those opportunities are shifting. And if the jobs are going to be in AI and semiconductor manufacture and EVs, college curriculum is going to adapt way slower, right? So you need like programs like Navgurukuls or other kinds of programs or even self-learning online will become a very big part of what kids do. So this kind of emotional resilience, the ability to adapt, which is actually something which we found historically we've actually not done a very good job of at all, because our program is such an intensive test prep program that every day from 5 in the morning till like 8 o'clock at night the child is just cramming math and science, and that's the need for clearing the exam, right? But what that does is it does two, I think, somewhat harmful things. One is it kind of defines success as marks on an exam, right? Which is a very dangerous, and we've always kind of had a challenge with this, right? Which is how do you keep kids motivated, keep them thoughtful, but also not demotivate them every time they get 110 instead of 140, right? Because it's very, very binary. And the other is that you're taking away all other time for reflection, right? In class 11 and 12. And that's why I said kind of in my introduction that I think it's necessary thereby we prepare kids for these exams. It's not something I would recommend, right? Even as a policy measure. I think it's a very broken way of selecting kids into college, but that's what it is, right? So I think for us, we've started doing more work in grade 9 and 10. I think we're also starting to realize that deprioritizing academic learning is actually not a bad strategy. Right? Like, can you take away at least a few hours a week where the children do things that are not about getting 5 marks more on the JEE, right? Very difficult to execute. I mean, it's very clear we need to do something about this, but it's very hard to get done, especially in an environment where we have reinforced a lot of this messaging, right? You have to come to Avanti, you first go to a Navodaya. So who are our kids, right? They're top 2% rural kids who get selected into a Navodaya, typically, or into some state program. Then from those children, we pick some more kids, right? Or we pick schools. So by the time they come in, I think to make the choice that Web have made, for instance, which is to say, sure, thank you very much, but I'm not going to prepare for the JEE, is a choice many more kids will have to make. And how do we change what we are doing to allow for that? I think is going to be a big question to solve for us.
Rupa, you wanted to come in, and I would love for you to come in and then open it up for perspective from the audience.
I was just going to add one thing about, we talk about these skills, 21st century, soft skills, whatever it's called, but I just wanted to share one story with you about one of our students that I think highlights how important, like, I don't know, I haven't thought about this deeply, but how resourcefulness is like the key thing. And let me just explain what I mean. So I run the economics group at the Tatas. We always have, I don't know, 5 to 10 interns every year. They're usually graduate students, gone to LSE or whatever. And I had an Apsara student who's in undergrad who interned with me and a host of these 5 other interns. And out of all of the interns we've had all of the years, the Apsara student is the one that has made the biggest mark by far on my team. I didn't even really work with her because, everyone else knew econometrics and Excel, and she knew nothing. She literally had to ask how to open Excel. But she was so resourceful in doing research and figuring out. We were writing about migration, and she found this one person in the South that did the amazing work on migration and could connect it to our numbers. She had this resourcefulness that, everyone else just opened their computers and started doing their work, but she could figure out how to connect dots in a way, and that made her stand out. And that to me is if we could figure out how to take the resources you have and stretch them to the max, whatever they are, that's going to be something that's huge. Sorry, because of what you said, I just wanted to share.
I think it's a great point, and I know some folks are eager to ask questions or share perspectives. So I think the point of this conversation really is, put in front of you 4 young adults who do very different life paths. They are different in terms of their academic success and what they decided to do. So long to linear, I think we're all taking that away. Langford, I think Raj is here. He's on the CEO of Lend Academy here, and they're doing a lot of work on policy change and how do you mainstream vocational learning, not just from grade 9, 10, but start it from grade 6. I hope Raj, it's okay if I share that perspective, but would love for folks in the room and what are you learning from your experience that we can do to shift in classrooms and schools to prepare young adults for. Or if you have questions or any little panelists, feel free. I think you wanted to ask something. Go ahead. Yes. And just introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Jyoti. I'm currently working in the selection management. I recently started working with them from May onwards up until now. And I think to the first set of questions that all the students or maybe I think all of you guys in the beginning were answering, I think I just wanted to add 2 points to that. When we are talking about what do really a student needs to be able to come to that path where some of us are sitting here today, I think one, and all of us knows that is the ability to face the challenges and given the backgrounds that they're coming from. So I think if we can start having those conversations that yes, we have these challenges, that what can we do about it? What next? What after it? So I think it's just that if we can have those conversations and build that perspective into them as well, that yes, these challenges are going to be there, but we need to move ahead and we need to take that step forward to be able to come out of it. And one of the best I think solutions that all of us I think in this room or in this building believes is that education, being able to educate ourselves to be able to come out of this cycle of poverty. So I think just wanted to add that point of building that strength and having that conversation with our students, not only when they're young adults, in 9th grade onwards, but when they're really young. Because they start understanding, yes, that they are seeing domestic violence at home, they're facing problems in their communities. So that was one aspect that I wanted to add. And I think another aspect that I really think is very important is having that consistency, I think, in the system. And I'm not sure if yet we have been able to find systems or processes that helps us students beyond academics as well, because we are talking about how do we make a student's job ready. I don't think so our curriculum at the moment really does it, and the question is then what do we do about it, right? And I think one of the ways that I am able to think at this point is that within school, how much more time can we spend beyond academics as well, that yes, academic is our top priority, but in order to be able to make ourselves job ready, can we probably think about having some vocational training from maybe 6th, 7th or 8th grade onwards, where kids are spending time, let's say 20 hours in 3 months and learning some sort of skill. I think someone was talking about here that maybe learning video editing, photography, or anything that they like. Identify the things that they're good at and then start mapping them to those careers. Talking about, this AI piece as well, that it is coming, and I don't know if we have started even thinking about those job opportunities for our students or maybe in the sector itself as well. So I was just thinking that yes, our curriculum is going to take so much more time, but maybe you guys have been in this system on like sector for so long. Would like to know your thoughts on maybe if we can have extracurricular because that is constantly evolving, right? So can we have maybe some sort of extracurricular activities through which we can integrate AI or like these new technologies that are coming in or job opportunities so that they can build that awareness at least, if not the skill set itself.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll answer a piece that Jyoti, right?
Yeah.
There's a particular piece that she spoke about that can we do extracurricular other than the school curriculum? I think extracurriculum is great, but I actually want to talk about whatever we do, the pedagogy piece of it, the how we do it, right? So, for example, in a classroom, can we think of roles that a teacher does that actually a student could do? And fundamentally shift airtime more and more to the students and the learners. For example, if there is a discipline piece that needs to be maintained in the classroom for learning to happen, why is it that we can't imagine that actually students could do that and students could do that a lot better than the teachers? And there's a self-governance piece that could kind of drive from there. And the skills that they would learn, right? Like if your best friend is creating a ruckus in the classroom, and there is a community of committee of 2-3 people who are supposed to maintain that discipline in the classroom, how do they navigate the friendship but also the role of like, hey, but no, this needs to happen in the classroom in a certain way, or attendance cracking, or bunch of different project management, who has submitted the homework, sort of like keeping the data sheets around it, like what's happening with that. There is so much learning that you can discover and that becomes your extracurricular. I think it's very easy to keep adding things on a student's life, but I don't think that really helps them. It's important that whatever we do, how do we do it a lot differently? The pedagogy at Navgurukul is very different, right? Like it's a fully student-led campus. 75% of our teams are alumni. Our campuses are now run completely by our alumni. They facilitate learning. There is something that we've done where each role that, for example, there is a life skills associate where we do a whole host of life skills. And so there is an associate which is a paid team member, but there is also a coordinator, student coordinator, which is a bunch of things. Like the associate pretty much does supporting that person as opposed to leading it and this person, student supporting it. And it shifts how learning happens, it shifts how agency happens, learning too will happen, but learning to learn and the host of like mindsets that we are talking about will get built through that is a piece that I want to highlight. AI, we all really do need to think about a lot more deeply. I think we have integrated AI. My co-founder is a crazy, just very focused on innovation person. It's a piece that I think we very often, there's a whole debate around, is AI a bubble or not? It is going to fundamentally change things. It might be overhyped right now, but it has started shifting things very fundamentally and we need to start thinking about it.
Any other last questions or comments? Or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Pradyumna. I'm a 2013 Teach for India fellow. I have one question and one comment. So question is for you, Nidhi. So there's something interesting you spoke of, right? I could say the USP of your program is the outcome orientation, right? You're getting people placed. But you said something very interesting. You said you do, however, focus on inputs and getting things right. So I do want to understand if you could speak a bit to sort of how do you make that happen, right? Because often we sort of think about outcome orientation, but we don't hear what you said. So I just want to hear a bit about that. I think the second is a comment on which I would love to hear more reflections of everybody here. That's this whole point around having to prepare children for uncertainty, right? Are we at some level, and I'm making this comment in a personal sort of, as a citizen of the country and probably the world, are we at some level sort of probably through that, not talking about some real fundamental issues around the number of jobs that are getting created, around social security maybe. I just want to hear your thoughts because I don't work very much with young folks right now, but I hear this consistently, this trend of there not being enough jobs for people really having to figure out what jobs are there. So just want to hear as to, is that something that you're seeing? That yes, even if you go to an IIT, you're not getting a job. That telling something serious is happening in our economy and probably the global economy. So just want to hear Like, what are the rumblings you're sort of sensing from the ground? Thank you.
I'll just answer the first piece because I think both of them can answer the second piece a lot better. So what I meant by the whole input thing is that we are very formally, in fact, now redesigning how we talk about our learning. For example, on a campus, a lot of students come and they can't speak 2 sentences of English properly. And the jobs that we are aspiring for these students will require a lot of English. But instead of saying that, oh, there's an English classroom, we say that there is an immersive English learning culture on campus. And there is a whole bunch of activities around it and what that happens. But instead of rewarding every month a student who's speaking the best English, because that is anyway going to then encourage the person who's come from some privilege. For example, the kids who come from TFI to our campuses are already more privileged than the other students that come because they actually got a TFI teacher in their classroom. And that is a kind of a privilege itself, right? A lot of our other students went to government schools where there were no TFI teachers. So if you reward the person who speaks the best English, the TFI or the Akanksha kid will get the best reward. But that's actually going to discourage everyone else to put in the hard work that they are putting in. And that's a huge problem in learning. And you have to design your learning for the most sort of least privileged of the students. So how do we do that? So we by design have a reward system that says that we will reward the effort. So the person who's putting in the most effort to speak English, 95% of their time they're speaking in English, even if that constrains their expression a lot, and then they are like constantly checking Google Translate, and we enable them to do all of these things. That is the person that gets rewarded, and there are like real rewards that they're aspiring for. You know, one day I will get a chutti, or I will not do a kitchen turn, or whatever else, I'll get some half an hour with Nidhi, or whatever, right? Whatever their aspiration is. So we are rewarding that constantly, and that is across the board, not just for English, but the technical learning community who's putting in the most input in helping the community be in harmony or conflict resolution. So there's a bunch of traits that you want to encourage. So we encourage that through the reward system while holding ourselves accountable to outcomes. To students, we focus on a lot on input and effort and how much effort are you putting in. And eventually we say that placement policy will require a certain amount of learning levels to be achieved. Only those who have achieved that will get the placement opportunities and interviews. Until you get there, you keep working. But we reward input, hold ourselves accountable to outputs.
I think 2 things. I'll just quickly give you the data. So I think the top 500 odd STEM colleges, the placement on an average is about 60%. So this is not some new thing. This has always been the case. I mean, this number has gone a little bit up and down. And I think the biggest reason you'll see that is because computer science in the last, I would say, half decade, if you have a CS degree of any form, you get placed easily. If you have a metallurgical engineering degree, don't get placed. If you have an agriculture degree, some states has high placement, some states has low placement. So this has always kind of been the case. You get drop out of that category. I think the only area where you see over 30-35% placement is technical courses, right? Where it'll be some kind of basically skilling to job. And of course, within the top end of those programs, you again hit 60-70%, and Navgurukul's rate must be like 80-90, right? So depending on, that's PAN IIT Reach for India, there's a bunch of other organizations, very high quality skilling organizations have actually higher placement rate than what we call good engineering colleges. But everything else is basically in the range of 15%, which is basically accident. So this uncertainty has existed forever. I think because of social media, kids now know, right? Because otherwise you were just in the dark. You didn't get placed because it's your fault. Right? I'm going to cue in Raj, even though he's not commenting. But I think there's this, from a structural perspective, we have designed an education system for the top 5%, right? For the kids, essentially, we end up working with. The whole education system is designed for the children Avanti works with. And I can assure you, I cannot work with more than 6-7% children in the public education system because no one is reaching that level. Firstly, there's no jobs. Secondly, there's just no one is reaching such extreme high levels of academic accomplishment in general. Whereas if you were to design it for the 95%, you would design a system that was vastly more vocational, right? I think there is work Raj has educated me over this. I'm going to give him credit even though he's not speaking. But I think there is NEP, there is a lot of provisions now around changing curriculum, introducing apprenticeships, introducing internships much earlier. I think the big question is going to be, and all of the things that Nidhi mentioned, right? Pedagogical shifts, you can do it. There is framework for it. The question is, who on earth is going to do it? Right? And I think what we'll find is there will be pockets, right? There will be some municipal commissioner, there will be some district collector, there will be some BDO somewhere, some principal who will decide, हाँ मैं कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ, and it will happen. and you'll see disproportionate success for those programs over 5, 7, 10 years. But how we start to do that, through TFI, through Kaivalya, through all of these programs we now have, where we have young, motivated people in government school classrooms, I think is going to be a big question. I have no great answers. And if others do, they should come in. But
I am so sorry, folks. I know we started the session a few minutes late, but we do have a hard stop now because the next session was supposed to begin at 3 p.m. The panelists are here, as is Raj. Raj, come.
don't hide behind a pillar.
Visible. He's kind of, driving the agenda of vocational learning across multiple states as well as India now. So, please feel free to catch and pick their brains. You've been an incredible audience. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our panelists who've come in just for this segment. We really appreciate your time and effort. Thank you. Thank you so much.